How y'all doing on this fine day? I'm not doing too bad. See, I made it home, so that's good. However, a trucking mechanic type of video, so something isn't okay. Anytime I'm filming one of these videos, something's broke. Except, no wait, there is going to be an exception. There either is going to be, or there already has by the time I upload this video. I don't really remember the order, but anyway, yeah, there is a project in there. That's not a daily driver. The old red truck pulling the drivetrain out. Hopefully maybe put the 351 in the cop car one day. That'll be cool. Anyway, this truck's broke. I think I might finally be having carbonator issues after having this truck back on the road for like maybe a year now, after it sat for like 6 years, and I haven't really like been through that carburetor in probably 8 to 10-ish of the years. So it's pretty amazing that I've just had like 0 issues out of it until now, so I can't really complain. Look at my fancy new air cleaner. Just a few days ago I got a much larger air cleaner. My last one was much smaller, maybe too small, because after I put that on I noticed that the truck had like much better throttle response, and it seemed to do the vacuumy thing a whole lot better. And I'm wondering if me having a lot better vacuum pressure through it might have anything to do with this here. You may be able to see, probably not, but there's a wet leaky spot either around my carbonator to adapter plate or from my adapter plate to intake manifold. One of those gasket surfaces is definitely leaky. So what I'm going to do to start with here in the next few days, I'm going to source me a complete rebuild kit for this old Holly with the 650 of the CFMs, and then that'll be, I'll go through like the entire thing and replace every gasket, put new power valve in it and all that cool stuff, accelerator, pump, diaphragm and all that. But for now, I just need it to stop surging, rolling down the road. It like starts and it does run, but it just doesn't idle well at all. It shakes a whole lot and then it dies. But going down the road, it'll like accelerate pretty good, except you have to give it a lot more throttle than I did before to accelerate. But it will go, and it will get up to speed, but when I'm maintaining speed, she's running like, you know what I mean? It's very inconsistent, and it just keeps sounding like there's no fuel in the tank. And I even stopped and put more fuel in the tank just to be sure. There's definitely fuel in the tank. So the issue seems to be fuel related up here, especially since every time I would pedal the throttle, it would like come back and it would run better and it wouldn't stall and keep going. So that usually could only mean one of two things when it's like that: when it'll run well when you're accelerating or pumping the throttle, but it won't idle well. Usually you're either having a fuel problem or you have slop in the timing gears, that chain that goes between the cam gear and the crank gear. And I already popped off my distributor cap and gave my crank a spin, and with every slight movement I make on the crank, I can see that rotor button turn. So that's a good sign that my timing chain isn't all sloppy and worn out, so that's probably not my hesitatory issue. So I think what we're going to do to start with here is, you see, I got my carbonator spray out, and the first thing I did is, if you look in the throat of the Holly here, there's these 4 little Venturi guys. I think that's what those are, those holes that go through. I just sprayed through those with the cleaner just in case they're clogged up. And the next thing we're going to do is pop this carburetor off and set it to the side for the first time in 10 years. And take that adapter plate off and clean up those 2 gasket surfaces and make a better seal on all those real quick, really good. Right. Now that we're all up in here, now I've got the wire loose from my electrodigital choke, unhooked the vacuum line for my vacuum advance on the distributor, And our PCV valve is undone from the side over here. That vacuum hose running to that is loose. Of course, the air cleaner is out of the way. Whoop, see, it's further out of the way now. I unhooked my throttle cable and my solid kickdown link here. That's the guy that when you push the pedal 3/4 of the way, she manually makes the transmission downshift to gear. Anyway, got those things loose. Pretty much everything loose from the carb except the fuel line. We're going to leave that on and maybe prevent on some fuel spillage. Probably not. But anyway, now that that stuff is loose, we can pick it up, set it to the side, examine, examine anywhere it looks like we might have a leak, which seems to be a few places. And so, what is going on over here with all the oily looking substance? Oh my goodness. Surely that hole doesn't go all the way through to here. Maybe it does. I don't know. Excuse me. Nope, it doesn't. That's good. What's some terrible flow on one of these adapter plates? Ooh, see? See how that just came right up really easy? That probably wasn't making a very good seal anymore. But yeah, you see the restrictiveness. I really need to put a 4-barrel intake manifold on here. I think I have one. Should look into that sometime soon. Then we'd have one less gasket surface because we got one here and then we got one under there. So the next thing we're going to do is unbolt this Carbonator 4-to-the-2 adapter, which looks like is a little hexi key, guys. That should go smoothly. I'm going to get the PB blaster right now. Well, fellers, we're definitely gonna keep fixing the leaky fellers over there, but I think I may have just discovered, you know, this thing's kind of heavy. What me problem? Yeah, so I noticed when I was looking at the bottom of this guy, I think I've got them closed right now. Yeah, check this out. Right about there. Can you see how this is closed? And right about here is right about there. You can tell by the way that it's not. I noticed that it was stuck that way. These are my secondaries, by the way. These are your primary throttle blades. The primary throttle blades, in my case here, are controlled by this manual attachment to your pedal, you know what I mean? So you have direct control over what they're doing. But the secondaries, those didn't close, by the way, because I just set the choke when I actuated the throttle. Anywho, on the secondaries, these guys are supposed to stay closed all the time until the truck gets under a heavy load and starts to lose vacuum, or gain vacuum, lose vacuum. The vacuum changes, and then that makes my vacuum operated secondaries, you see over there to the side, you may be able to see, there's a big giant diaphragm right here, and when it starts getting sucked on, it will move upward slowly, like so, and start slowly opening the secondaries. But what I was telling you anyway is that these blades were open slightly, so my secondaries were cracked open, which means the whole time I'm trying to run all easy on the throttle and cruise around off of my primaries, the secondaries are back here causing me a big fat vacuum leak and a bunch of extra fuel. So my issue before was the truck would run pretty good, like when I accelerate it would go, but I'd have to give it too much gas. But every time I planed out, it would just start getting really like surgy, which is weird because I've never had surgy before. I've had lack of fuel, and that makes it feel real misfirey, like it's going and it's a bunch of tut 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 tut, like I don't know how to describe it, but it just feels like you're going and you're losing, and then you're like going back to maintaining and losing. But what it was doing earlier is while I'm running down the road maintaining speed, it's like going, and then it would surge up. So it's like I kept feeling me get pushed back into the seat a little bit while I'm holding the throttle in one spot. So I'm thinking the secondary is being stuck open, which seemed to either be from a bad diaphragm up here. This linkage is very, very dirty. So it may just have been it being gummed up here or a bad diaphragm, but either way, those secondaries were cracked open like when I pulled the carburetor off. So I think that means they're either falling open while it runs, or they were stuck open while I was driving home. And that's why the truck kept running really, really bad and stalling out and would only go when I gave it extra throttle. So maybe we can fix up our gasket surfaces, clean all the gunk out of here, and get this guy where it moves nice and freely, and maybe we won't have that problem anymore. However, if it turns out my diaphragm is just all chooched up really bad and that's causing the secondaries to just come open on me when the engine's under vacuum and running, I could, and I will, if I have to, get up in here and stick something in here to hold. I don't know if you're looking at the guy, where you see the metal tab off of that like little throttle plate there, how it moves up. If we manually hold that down where it won't move up, that would take care of that temporarily till we rebuild the whole carb and fix that problem. That's probably also causing a vacuum leak if it's all messed up and not letting that travel right. Anyway, now it's about time to clean that up and then pull that plate off and then clean that up and then clean that up and then goop all the stuff and then put it back together, and maybe it'll be fine. So this is what the old 4-barrel adapter plate looks like on the bottom side, and that's underneath it. And by the way, that little hole over to the side, you'll notice that there's not the 2 barrels, but there's 3. Yeah, that third one is not an intake. Peel my whatever I had on here, quick steel gasket maker something or another. See, this right here, fellers, is an exhaust port, ironically enough. And it routes up off of, I don't remember how it gets exhaust to it exactly, but it does it somehow. It might have something to do with cylinder head porting. I don't know, but some way, somehow, exhaust flows out of this intake right here, and this adapter plate doesn't exactly cover that all the way. You may notice the burn chardy spot on the gasket here. I should probably like put a metal plate or something on that, or stuff it with some quick steel a little bit and make like a good seal on it that's not relying on this gasket, because clearly that's not a reliable way to plug off that exhaust port. And that's also why I had the quick steel gasket maker stuff here, because if you have that port uncovered, you have a really loud exhaust leak under the hood. It sounds terrible, and it really just affects your fuel economy and your performance a whole lot. So anywho, that's what it looks like when we pull that plate off. Now we can get to cleaning that up really good, figuring out a more smoother, cleaner method that doesn't, you know, melt my gasket and whatnot, of sealing my exhaust port. By the way, that was made to run into the factory 2-barrel carburetor. Pretty sure that had something to do with it being either the carburetor staying warmed up or them cold mornings, something about the carburetor warming up faster, something to do with the temperatures of the 2-barrel. And the old 4-barrel Holly heel here doesn't utilize that. So yeah, we'll figure out a way to cap that off, and then we'll clean all these gasket surfaces up a lot. Oh, that probably sealed just fine. Well, you gotta appreciate that. And if I have enough of that gasket maker, we're also gonna fill that in, because I bet this one comes off too. Yep. Those stupid places where they put these numbers and their name and whatnot into these adapters makes it where you have a teeny tiny little bit of surface to seal out all that really intense suction force going on right there. Anywho, we'll probably fill those in. Now I've got my gasket surface on the 2-barrel intake manifold cleaned up really nice and pretty, and right there, that exhaust port I have stuffed full of the quick steel putty stuff, and then I took my scraper putty knife and scraped across it so it's flat. Over here on this terrible spacer adapter feller on the back side, if you're familiar with Junkyard Digs or Vice Grip Garage, you already know about these stupid little imprints, which are so dumb, because who's gonna see, Mr. Gasket, that you're the guy that made my thing when it's bolted to the manifold? Nobody's gonna know. What's the point of putting in this square indent on both sides and casting in a part number and your Mr. Gasket thing when no one will ever see it anyway, and it just takes a big chunk out of my mating surface? So, anywho, stuffed that full of the quick steel, gave her a with the putty knife so it's all smooth and flat. And I also, you may be able to see already from the other side, came in here and I have 8 mounting holes that are completely unused for my application. In fact, these lower mounting holes, they at least weren't potential vacuum leaks because they butted right up to that manifold mating surface. However, they are making the flow all turbulent and not smooth straight into the barrels because they're like really deep holes, so it really makes for making the airwaves all wonky, and I feel like it would flow better with those filled in. But these ones on the outside edge, these 4, those are potential vacuum leaks, and we don't like those, because these 4 holes straight line right up with the gasket surface on that carburetor. So I had nothing but the thin gasket keeping the vacuum right here, and it's just like wide open on the bottom. So I bet that was causing a little bit of leakages. And I think, yeah, one of them is right there in that port. You see right above the secondaries there, there's that little port guy. I bet you I had a leak right there. Because one of these holes was right straight in line with that like port tunnel guy. So that's why I filled all those in. So now I've got that filled up. I've got this guy all prepped out again. So now we can take our gasket maker material 5000, squirt it all over there, mount this guy back down in place. Oh yeah, by the way, the mounting bolts here that hold this plate to the manifold, yeah, they were loose. So that probably wasn't helping the whole vacuum leak situation. Anyway, let's scoop up the stuff and that back on. Hey. Now I've got the bottom side of the carbonator all cleaned up, really nice. You can even see the color on the secondaries now. And I opened up all 4 of the barrels and cleaned out the insides of them really well. My transfer slots down here are nice and cleaned out, and I got them reset down to a square. You may be able to see, kinda. You can kinda see. But my transfer slot is a square on the primaries, so maybe hopefully when we goop up this gasket surface, stick it to the adapter plate and hook our lines back up, it might start and idle. Or I might just have to crank that transfer slot open because other things are not quite right in the carburetor. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it'll be fine. Maybe it won't. Yeah, okay. Now we've got that all mounted back up, all my lines hooked back up, my big giant air filter back on. By the way, if you didn't know from before how big of a difference that is. So before, my air filter was probably a little on the restrictive side, a little too small maybe. That one's probably a lot bigger than necessary, but that's way better than it being too small in this little bitty old worn out clogged up guy. So yeah, anyway, it's all back together. Now we get started again and see if it maybe idles. Or if the secondaries are just stuck open and the diaphragm is all frigged up, so the secondaries just keep opening all by themselves. Something or another. Something's gonna happen. Yeah, so that's opening, and they should be all the way down. Alright, right, yeah. So they are all the way closed right now. So if I start it and it runs really bad and I reach down there and I feel that that thing's opening, I know that diaphragm's just shot and I need to mechanically hold the secondaries closed. I think it might still be a little off. We're definitely gonna go ahead and do the full rebuild on that carburetor, and we especially just need to anyway because it's been so friggin' loyal. Remember, I haven't been inside it in like 10 years and we still haven't been inside it. All we did is clean up some gunk on our secondary linkage and fix on some vacuum leaks between our mounting plates. We still haven't actually been inside that carb. And it's not quite down to the low idle, but so far it sounds pretty good and it's very steady. Before it was just shaking the daylights out of everything. Yeah, that's like way rich smelling. Anyway, that'll do her for now. See, before the truck was running so bad, I was pretty confident it wasn't going to make it all the way to work tomorrow. Now, it's still not quite right. I want to rebuild the whole car, make it better, but it does seem to be running and idling steady, and before I had to like really work the throttle to keep it running. I couldn't even just crack it open because it would just stall out and die then too. It would just stall out going So yeah, now at least it idles. The truck's just a little shaky, but it seems like she should make us to work and back and all that fine, and we'll get us a full rebuild kit on the way. Anywho, thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. Have a wonderful day. And I'm gonna go wash my hands and shut the truck off.